Valve introduced 6 new heroes all in the span of 2 weeks. In order, it was Mina, Billy, Doorman, Cage, Drifter, and Victor. For me personally, these heroes really set a standard for what we can expect in the future for this game and the characters that they create from there on. I'm not saying I'm tired of these 6 new heroes already. However, it has made me extremely excited to think about like who's gonna be next. Call me crazy, but like what if Valve does another run just like they did with these 6 heroes? They could just load up 6 new heroes and do another voting process. I mean, it would be a real shame if the voting table was only used for this one occasion. So I have hopes that there could be at least a few more characters lined up before the game's official release. And because of that, I did some digging and I wanted to see what characters are already kind of in the pipeline. Nothing's confirmed, it's all speculation, and at the same time, it's kind of fun because of that. I've talked about it before, but I've never been a part of a game this early in development, and I think that's kind of the beauty of this all. So if you didn't know, back in October of last year, Valve introduced a certain game mode to Deadlock called Hero Labs. Hero Labs was a mode that you queued up into that allowed you to play the very early bare bones version of a hero. Vyper, Sinclair, Holiday, and Calico were all heroes that originated from this game mode, and they eventually graduated into release. You had the opportunity to try a whole bunch of new characters alongside the original cast. So it felt very, very inclusive. Like you got to really see the groundworks of a character, and you truly did, because the characters that came out of Hero Labs were extremely janky. They had barely any animations. Their design was not fully done, and to this day, some of those characters still need some work and most likely will get that. Prime example being Vyper. Vyper's model is not finished, but there is a leak for her future model, and I think it looks really good. Hero Labs had its run though, because with this big update, Valve decided to pause development on Hero Labs. Mind you, there were a handful of characters that still existed from Hero Labs that weren't fully released. Realistically, some of these heroes might get completely scrapped, but others might get released. They might have had just enough, and they just needed a little bit more work for Valve to do until an official release. Or a third option, they're getting reworked into something completely different. Maybe an aspect of their model or design really piqued the interest for another character. Well, the reason why I bring it up is because I think these 4-5-ish heroes are actually really interesting. Right here we have one of the various leaked rosters that existed a little before this big update. As you can see, we have our 6 brand new heroes with their code names. Paige is Bookworm, Doorman's the same, Drifter's the same, Frank for Victor, Punk Goat for Billy, and Vampire Bat for Mina. You might have noticed I didn't mention someone. This guy in the corner, Priest, a character that has been leaked, and honestly he sounds extremely interesting from what I've read, so I wanted to talk about him. So I've been using mutex.gg because it's been a good repository for all the Deadlock heroes, and as you can see here, we have all of our current roster characters. And if you scroll down, we have a lot of scrapped Hero Lab characters. So if you look here, we have an overview of what his abilities are just based off of descriptions. Shout out to Reed Ranger on Reddit, I believe also on Twitter, because they drew up a mock of what they believe Priest's design is based off of his abilities and the way that they sound. His artwork is sick. I really hope the finished product has some kind of a vibe to this. Everything from the crosses to the crossbow. I don't even know what his lore could be, but I don't even care. I'm already invested enough that I'm going to read his leaked abilities. For his first ability, we have Buckshot. Fires a blast forward, dealing damage and pushing enemies back. You can push them against wall and it deals additional damage. All right, so it looks like a blast forward that can push. Potent Vapors. Burn your sensor, reducing incoming damage and healing over time. You can't attack while it's active. Penance and Retribution. Taking damage grants stacks, and they expire over time. At max stacks, you gain bonus damage. And then his ultimate Witching Hour. He equips his crossbow, allowing him to fire massive stakes. So he's like a monster hunter priest. I think that's so interesting. Each stake deals damage and applies a brief slow. And there's no information on his primary or his melee, but there's a bunch of damage numbers that I'm sure someone would be very invested in. I'm so excited. To be fair, that's most likely not going to be his official name. This most likely is a developmental name. But with the name Priest, I automatically thought support. And I'm always inclined for more supports, but a badass monster hunting priest, I'm all in. Now I want to go back to some of the Hero Lab characters. From the list of the Hero Lab characters that were still there before this big update, we have Fathom, Raven, Trapper, and Wrecker. 4 other additional heroes. So the first hero I want to talk about is Fathom, who we have right here. From what I've read in his synopsis, he sounds like this kind of fishy predator, I guess kind of stalker assassin. I have no clue what he does, so I'm just going to read it really shortly. Scalding Spray sprays water in a cone ahead of you. You can build a bonus weapon damage as the spray damages an enemy hero. Sounds like his poke. Breach, launch forward, damaging all enemies near where you land and knocking them into the air. A little bit of CC, a little bit of mobility. Reef Dweller Harpoon. He throws a harpoon that lashes to a wall or ceiling and then pulls you in. Also activates invisibility and gives some additional charges of something. And it does not break invisibility, so that's cool. Another form of mobility and also invisibility, so it's pretty good for an assassin. And then his ultimate, Lurker's Ambush. While out of combat and not seen by enemies, you heal. So he's pretty similar to actually Pike from League of Legends. If you stand still, you become invisible. As long as you stay still, you are invulnerable. That's actually really useful. Actually, I'm not sure if that's useful. I feel like you should always kind of be on the move, but for his purposes of stalking and then assassinating, I guess it fits. He can also charge up and throw Sticky Spit that damages and slows. So another form of poke CC, just more damage overall. And then we have Trapper. He is a part of the New York Municipal Coven, which from my understanding, they keep the streets of the Cursed Apple nice and tidy and clean. It literally means like killing invasive species, which he handles, and makes sense because his kit seems to involve around a lot of deployables and a lot of barrier trap things that people can run into. And yeah, I hope they give this guy the most like janitor type of look, because it would feel so fitting. Bottled Phantasmicide, throw a jar that leaves a spreading toxic pool. Enemies caught are slowed and silenced. Silk Trap, create a thread of web between 2 surfaces. Enemies who touch the web take damage over time and become slowed and are revealed. Sounds like a little deployable. Pest Barrier, apply a combat barrier to a target ally and it periodically does spirit damage and slows. Crawling Plague, release a wave of spectral spiders that chase enemies and explode, dealing spirit damage. Enemies are poisoned, they lose spirit and spirit resist, and this can stack. Just like his name indicates, he's very much a zoner, controller of the map. It sounds like his gameplay leads him to setting up an area, basically anti-siege, if that makes sense. And I think a character like that is necessary in this type of game. And the last 2 characters that I want to talk about are Raven and Wrecker, specifically because they are still in the game files. Technically, all of these characters are in the game files, but I mean, using the control console, you can actually just spawn Raven and Wrecker, and I'm actually gonna do that right now. Okay, so we have Wrecker here. His placeholder model seems to be Paradox at the moment. Also basic heavy melee and animations. Nothing too crazy. His first ability is Wrecking Ball. He throws a large ball of scrap and it stuns. His 2 is Consume, latch onto an enemy, damaging them and healing yourself while healed. Targets have to be in line of sight, and if it kills, you get a Bile Blast. Okay, so this is like Lady Geiss's Tether. And then we have Bile Blast, shoot out a blast of consumed remains, damaging and slowing enemies. And then his ultimate Overload, create an area that slows nearby enemies and damages them after a channel. Damage scales with total channel time. Boom! If you ever played League of Legends, it's pretty similar to Nunu ult. And on that note, all these characters are, like I've said many times, developmental. So while it's really easy to be creative in this type of game, especially with the verticality that Deadlock has over other MOBAs, a great jumping off point is most likely things that already exist in the industry. So I'm not surprised that some of these abilities are very similar to things you've seen in other games. I think what's really important is the final product, when we see how they transformed these things and these aspects into a finished, fleshed out original character. hopefully. And last but not least, we have Raven. I decided to keep him last because, as you're about to see, he seems to be the most fleshed out of all the other Hero Lab characters. So there's a pretty good chance that he's most likely going to release pretty soon. I hope they didn't completely scrap him. At least I think his animations look pretty good, and I mean, he is this like spy character, and I feel like a game like this really needs something to fill that niche. Okay, so here's a look at Raven. He's got a really sick hand tattoo. He's very dapper. He uses an umbrella as his weapon, and he's got a great suit and an eye patch. Starting with his unfinished animations, we have his left click, which is a burst fire out of his umbrella. He reloads his umbrella, so that's definitely not a finished model. His parry, I love his parry. I originally thought this is what Mina's parry should have done, but maybe it's not finished. He shields with it, and then his melee. He kind of swings his umbrella like a sword, even in his light melees. That's pretty cool. And then we have his abilities. Blind Side, throw a concussive grenade that reduces enemy turn rate, and you deal backstab damage when you hit people from behind. Very assassin-like. Umbrella maneuver, use your umbrella to catch a gust of wind that lifts you backwards, then you fire a projectile. A little bit of mobility and you can fight back with it. And then this ability looks like Wraith's icon, and it is. It's full auto. It's exactly the same ability actually. Whether this stays, I'm not sure. I'm sure they'll still incorporate a steroid of some sort into his kit then. And then his ultimate revelation. Enemy heroes nearby have slowed movement and dashes and receive damage over time when they're looking at you. If they look long enough, they get cursed. So it's like a Medusa's gaze, but then it activates curse just like the item. I think that's so creative to reintroduce that form of CC in a different way other than the item. So I love that. I hope they keep something similar. And that's Raven. I'm excited for him the most besides Priest, and I really hope that either of them come to the game pretty soon. I'm just so excited. I want the game to be finished, and I want to see the whole cast. I just want to collect everyone like Pokemon for some reason. That's just the energy that I get from the game sometimes. And the last thing I wanted to end on was something that I mentioned pretty briefly, or you may have noticed from that leaked roster photo, but Vyper and Viscous have leaked models, and with the potential release of maybe 6 more heroes that Valve ends up doing if they want to use the voting table and stuff again, I feel like they'll also just fully update 1 or 2 or a few more character models, just like they did with like Vindicta, McGinnis and stuff like that. So this is Vyper's new model, at least the leaked one, so it's not final, just like anything else that I've talked about today, but I really like it. They really leaned into the snake look, which would most likely make her sliding animations look so much better. Also, I love the gun. I don't know what you would call that. Is that an Uzi? I don't know, but I think it's gonna be hilarious to see Vyper's amazing voice actor lines with this model. And we have Viscous. This is Viscous's leaked model. He looks like a little Taurus. He's just our goo guy. He's just a little guy. I think he looks so cute. I'm really excited to see both of these models in the game. But yeah, there you go. I am extremely excited. I really hope that they do another one of these community-driven voting events for these future heroes or something of the sort. I'm honestly super excited for any of these heroes to be fleshed out, but I'm also excited for the prospect of heroes that I have no clue are coming. The surprise would just feel so much more gratifying. I know this update has barely marinated, but I'm also looking forward to the next big one because I don't know, I'm really invested in this game, and if you're watching this, you probably are too. But yeah, that's pretty much all for today. I'm always keeping up to date with these leaks and stuff, so hopefully we hear more news on Raven and Priest specifically. All I know is I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be playing this game. I'm here for a good time, and I'm hoping it's for a long time. All right, peace out, guys.